Starting today. So again, two methods of factoring we've covered. Factoring out a GCF, and you'll see that no matter what we are factoring, we should always look for a GCF first, no matter what, but factoring out a GCF. We also then factored by grouping if you have four terms. Today we are factoring polynomials of this form. So of the form x squared plus bx plus c. Andrew, how many terms does this have? 3. What do we call a polynomial with 3 terms? Trinomial. So you are factoring today. We are factoring trinomials. The way we factor trinomials is by using what's called reverse FOIL. And I'll explain why it's called reverse FOIL. So again, factoring is expressing a polynomial as a product, so as two things multiplied, product of monomials and polynomials. So I have here, this is the forward version and then backward version. I showed this the first day when we did factoring using a GCF. If I were to multiply these two binomials, you multiply these by using FOIL, or some of you use the box method. Okay, so when we multiply going forward, we use FOIL, or like I said, if you use the box method, you could do that as well. So to do this, I think I'm actually going to show using the box method because I'm going to show you with factoring using the box method. So I know some of you didn't, not all of you use the box method for multiplying, but I'm going to show that. So if you set up your box, remember these, when you're multiplying, these went on the outside. So you're multiplying x and then plus 3, so x and positive 3. And then you have x and positive 4. So you could put a plus sign in front. You'd put a negative there if it was minus. And when you multiply, or were to use FOIL, in each box you're multiplying those two terms together. So in this first box we'd have x times x, which is what? X squared. Still in that top row I'd have x times positive 3. That'd be 3x. Now if I go to the bottom row, starting in this left one, positive 4 times x would be 4x. And then positive 4 times positive 3 is 12. And with the box method, you always get your like terms on the diagonal that you can combine. So you would have x squared, and then 3x and 4x together are 7x, and then plus 12. So your product was a trinomial. That's in this form up here. So now what we are looking at today is if I give you this, you are giving me this as your answer. So you're doing the reverse. I'm giving you the trinomial. You're giving me the two binomials that you multiply together. So here's how we can go backward. So here I'm giving you the answer. You can already see what your answer is going to be. But I'm going to show you how to get that. It's called reverse FOIL, and I refer to it down here as the X method. It's kind of, I'm going to call it the X box method because there's an X and there's a box. So X box method. And so what I'm going to do off to the side here is I'm going to make a big X, and we're filling in, first of all, the top and bottom of that X. So on the top, we're going to put a product. On the bottom, we're going to put a sum. And product means to multiply, sum means to add. So here's how you fill in the X part of this, and then we'll transfer that to the box part of this. Filling in the X, I take my first and my last term, so the x squared and the 12, and I multiply those together. So what is x squared times 12? 12x squared. So 12x squared goes in the product place, and then the sum is where my other term goes, the 7x, the positive 7x. So if it was minus 7x, I'd put a negative there. So I'm just going to highlight where that 7x is going. So what you're trying to figure out here, and again, possibly having your, well, actually not possibly, having your gold math factors chart can help with this. You are looking for what two terms would multiply to 12x squared and add to 7x. So first look for the numbers. What numbers multiply to 12 and add to 7? Nadia? Yes, 4x and 3x. So 4 and 3, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 plus 3 is 7. And then to multiply to x squared and add with an x, they both need an x. So I'd have a 4x and a 3x here. And whichever one you list first, doesn't matter, as long as you have the 4x and the 3x. Then we had factored by grouping before with the box method. So I'm still going to use the box, but it's the reverse method of what I did before. So I'm filling in the inside of the box to then get the outside, what two binomials multiply together. So in the top box is where the x squared goes, the first term. In these two diagonal boxes here is where these two terms that you found go. So the 4x goes in one of them, the 3x goes in the other one. And then the last box is where you put the last term, so the 12 goes here. Okay, and then just like we factored by grouping, this is where in each row and each column you take out the GCF. So if I go across the first row, what do x squared and 4x have in common? Casey? They both have x. In the second row, what do 3x and 12 have in common? Oh, they don't both have an x. Yep, 3x and 12. What's their greatest common factor? A number. Which number? 3. Okay, then I'm going to do the columns. What do x squared and 3x have in common? An x. What do 4x and 12 have in common? 4. So then here's your factored form. X plus 3 is one factor, x plus 4 is the other. So it's working backwards. You need to go now during notes because you're missing explanations. Okay, so that's what we're doing differently in this section. It's the x with the box to get the factored form. But it's the reverse of FOIL. So let's go through another example here. And we'll see if we notice a pattern happening. So factoring using reverse FOIL. So looking at this first one, x squared plus 10x plus 16. So I'm going to make my x. And I'm just going to put a dot for multiplication on the top, a plus sign for the sum on the bottom. So what term am I trying to multiply to? What would go here? Yep, 16x squared. What am I trying to add to down here? 10x. Okay, so look for, you know that both terms are going to have an x. Look for two numbers that multiply to 16 and add to positive 10. You can use your gold sheets that I gave you. Jennifer? 8 and 2. So 8 times 2 is 16. 8 plus 2 is 10. So I would have 8x and 2x. Okay, then I can set up the box. So what term goes in the top left here? X squared. And then on the diagonal again is where the 8x and 2x go. And again, if you have them, like when you're doing these on your own, if you have these switched, you're still going to get the same answer. And then what term goes in the bottom right? The 16. Okay, and then you factor out the GCF in each row and column. So top row, x squared and 8x, what do they have in common? X, 2x and 16, 2. X squared and 2x, first column, have an x, 8x and 16, 8. So my factored form is x plus 2 times x plus 8. Questions on that one? Okay. I want to look for one that has, because none of those have had some negatives in them. So let's actually, because there's 4 examples on the back too, let's flip it over. Let's look at number 3, because 3 is also written differently. You still have a trinomial, but look at that note. It says make sure the expression is in standard form first. Standard form again means highest exponent, highest degree down to the lowest. So I would actually want to flip this around and have the x squared in front, then plus 10x, and then plus 9. So you want the x squared term, then the x term, then the constant, the one without an x. Actually, why don't you go ahead and do number 3? So follow, because we went through a couple examples. That way I can walk around and then we'll double check one that has a negative as well. So go ahead and factor number 3. I can walk around and answer individual questions you have, see where we're still having some questions. Make sure you have the exponent show equal to 8x plus 12x. Not for the ones like that you would have it this way.
Yeah, because it's just like these 2 versus others.
This is giving me what these two should be. So that's why you do the x. But
So all of these are.
careful because you need these numbers to multiply to this. So I would first, figure out what multiplies to 9. So 3 times 3, but that would be 9 times. So what else multiplies to 9? 9 times 1. And then 9 plus 1 is 10. Yep.
So you're going to send it over. And then we'll always do that. So we'll always go all the way to the outside one, and then when we jump at the exponent, we'll multiply it, right? So that's 9x squared, right?
Questions ready?
So I can always just do one.
I like my other list.
So the x squared goes in the first box. These two middle boxes, the reason you're making the x, and you should have an x with them, so you should have 9x. And then this number. So you're making this so that you know what these two boxes should be. Because these are the two numbers that add to 10. So it's like you're splitting the 10x into 9x plus 1x. So that you're not using the 10, but these two numbers add to 10. So, what do you think?
So x squared is always in the top. Right. Wait. I want to be okay. Why did you get to put 10 What about the 9x squared?
You do. Now, a gold sheet that has factors on it, what multiplies to 9 and adds to 10? On top is what your product is.
you watch all of them? No. When did you started like mid-season when it started using it before, right? Yeah, so you still got like some like that's super old from what you watched, but like just before you started. And then like going on a trip to America and all these places. Oh yeah. I've seen bubbles and
So first,
bubbles living in the trailer.
you can get more use out of it. Guess how much it is? When they were playing. Way more than that. You're like 140. That's crazy. I like bands so much though, because they're not too expensive, they're not too cheap, they're good quality. It's like a very good meal too. That was aggressive. I'm really scared. Yeah, it's easy.
Okay, we'll go through another one together, but double check this one. I know some of you were struggling. One of the most difficult things with factoring is figuring out what these numbers are. So what numbers multiply to the top and add to the bottom. That is, if you're stuck there, you can't really move forward. So that is why I gave you that factor chart, but you have to remember they're not written in. That 1 is always a factor. So 1 times the number is always a factor. Okay, so let's go through, well, we'll just go through one more together because there were some questions. So let's look at number 4 together. So we have x squared minus 8x plus 12. So if we set up our x, what would we, hold on, multiplying on top, adding on the bottom. What would we be multiplying to up here? Nadia? Okay. And then negative 8x is what we're adding to because of the minus sign in front, so that 8x is negative. So just hold on, Nadia, give people a chance to think about it. What two numbers multiply to positive 12 but add to negative 8? Nick? Yes, so if you're multiplying to a positive and adding to a negative, both numbers need to be negative. And it's negative 6x and negative 2x. So negative 6 and negative 2 multiply to positive 12, and negative 6 plus negative 2 add to negative 8. Okay, so then from here, again, for the box, the first term in the upper left is always the first term of your trinomial, the x squared. That comes from the original polynomial. The 2 on that diagonal are the two numbers. The reason you're making the x is to get those two numbers on the diagonal because they add to your middle term. So I'd have negative 6x and negative 2x. And the last one is always the last term, so the positive 12. Okay, so now across the top row, x squared and negative 6x, what do they have in common? X. What about negative 2x and positive 12? Good. So because that first one is negative, you take out the -2. Now down the columns, x squared and -2x. Take out an x. -6x and +12. Take out the -6. So it would be x minus 2 times x minus 6. Okay, questions there? Okay, we don't have a ton of time, so here's your assignment to do 5 and 6. Okay? We have a little bit of time. We'll continue doing this tomorrow to make sure we understand the factoring. So 5 and 6, that's what you need to have done. You have 5-6 minutes right now, so you shouldn't be putting anything away. You should be working on these. See if you can get them done before you go. I'll be right there, Nadia. Just hold on.